So this is news that none of the guys wanted to hear, but it needs to be said. And that's the idea that there is no such thing as being recovered with an ED ending, right? Having it be something of the past. Isn't a surprise because you've been in the groups, you've seen that sobriety is a tough thing when it comes to sex and porn addiction, right? It's not easy and it's not uncommon for guys to relapse 5 years in, 10 years in, right? And the consequences of relapse when it comes to this addiction are typically pretty big, right? Asking your wife for a second chance is a big ask. Asking for a third chance, a lot of guys don't get that third chance, right? So there is no recovered, right? This is a process addiction, right? So there's brain processes that you might not even be aware of yet that you might discover 5 years from now. You know, I'll speak for myself as somebody in recovery. It's not uncommon for me every 6 months to still discover a thought process that I am compulsive around or addicted to, or something that has the potential to be unhealthy, right? And so that's why I say there is no such thing as recovered. And you're going to hear this, right? Most of the CSATs, the people who've been personally affected by being compulsive or addicted, CSATs will tell you too, right? I am in recovery myself. They go to their own meetings, right? A lot of therapists have meetings exclusive to CSAT therapists, right? So the point is having this be a thing of the past to the point where you take your foot completely off the gas pedal. I'd be careful with that. Especially if you love your wife and love your family, I would be very, very careful taking your foot off the gas. So I wanted to just kind of introduce this concept, right, of recovery being a lifestyle. You know, many of you have heard me before, I don't like the word recovery because, again, it comes with this like addiction connotation to it, right? Where it's something that we're going to go do. It's short term. It's like this nuisance or inconvenience. And we do the work and then we become recovered, right? Is kind of the understanding. And, you know, in substance addiction, that kind of actually makes sense, right? In substance addiction, because it's very different than process addiction, you can go to rehab and detox and become recovered, right? Or close to it, right? Well, with process addiction, it's not quite like that, right? These processes, some of them are really sticky. Some of them might take 2, 3, 4, 5 years to even get out of your life. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to be relapsing every week. It just means, you know, you're going to be battling some of these compulsive temptations throughout the day. I would like to introduce the concept of calling this self-mastery rather than recovery. Self-mastery meaning the concept of mastering oneself, right? And that includes all aspects of oneself, your identity, your belief system, right? The things that you've become attached to, your emotions and your needs, right? A plethora of other things, right? What it's like to be alive and be a healthy individual operating in a healthy fashion, fulfilling your full potential, right? Self-mastery versus recovery. Now, are the two words interchangeable? Probably, honestly. When you transition out of sobriety and into recovery, recovery is basically self-mastery, right? It's getting over the things that got you to these behaviors in the first place, right? Your distrust of others, your over-reliance on oneself, this perception of the lone wolf, and it's better if I take care of my problems myself. The shame around asking for help or showing and expressing your emotions and the vulnerability attached to that, or feeling your emotions and feeling them as an inconvenience, which a lot of high-achieving men perceive emotions as something that slows them down or distracts them, right? Sorting all of that out, that's recovery. And it's the same thing as self-mastery, right? You know, I call self-mastery the road to intentional living, right? How do I create the reality that I want? The reality that elicits the emotions that I want to feel, right? If I want to feel respected, admired, accomplished, successful, if I want to feel like I'm going to be remembered when I die, right? All of these emotions, if I want to feel these awesome emotions, I need to create a reality that it's going to yield those feelings, right? That's really what we're talking about, self-mastery. So instead of looking at recovery as a phase or a thing that you're doing so that you can save the marriage, achieve long-term sobriety, whatever, kind of flip that. I would say recovery is a lifestyle. That's why I like to call it self-mastery. It really never ends, right? The process of mastering oneself and seeking truth is a process that you'll do for the rest of your life. And it should be fun. I mean, you've heard me say that before. If it's not fun, you're doing it wrong. If it's not fun, you're going to relapse. I mean, that's just the truth. I mean, it's going to get old. You're going to take your foot off the gas and you're going to relapse. So it's important to develop a self-mastery process that's fun. It's not uncommon for guys to 2x, 3x, 4x their income after joining my recovery groups, even though they aren't business groups. We're not talking about making money. But the truth is, in business, it's an interaction between humans, right? When somebody hires you, signs you on for a contract, buys something from you, switches from another company over to your company, whatever, it's a human choosing you, another human. And so what happens oftentimes is as these guys are diving into their self-mastery and really sorting out their brain processes, right? How many of these are serving me, and how many of these got implanted into my brain through childhood, through movies, television, outside influence, right? How many of the things that I believe was I programmed to believe versus how many of my beliefs are actually my own, right? Do I want to believe these things? And it's that self-mastery process of really teasing out, how do I know what I know? And do I actually like what I know? Do I even believe what I know? Have I stopped long enough to challenge my own belief system? And I think that's the beauty of self-mastery or recovery, is it's that process, right? Am I truly living my best self? Am I believing beliefs that I want to believe? Do the beliefs that I have, did I put them there, and do I want them there? Or were they implanted in me? Was I brainwashed by my parents, organized religion, mentors, again, advertising, social media influencers, right? Have I been convinced that this is the right way I want to live my life, that these things are important to me? Or are they actually important to the real me? Right? And that's the mastery of self, is teasing this out. Now, this is really, really hard to do on your own. That's why you're going to see so many just kind of self-mastery mastermind groups, or these kind of retreats that people go on, surround themselves with other people on the same self-mastery journey. Now, why is this important? Well, it's really hard to test your own belief system because so many of our beliefs we consider true. Right? We consider it the truth because if it's something you've believed since you were 10 years old, you've never tested it. So it feels like a fact of life, right? I need attention from women. It's valuable to me when women are attracted to me and I can see them staring at me, right? That would be a belief that I adopted when I was like 12 or 13 years old. But when I really think about it, like, what if these women at the gym are married? What if they have boyfriends? What if they have families and kids? Right? So I'm asking for them to violate their own morals and values of honoring their marriage and keeping their eyes to themselves and not objectifying me, right? Out of respect for her husband and her family, right? So again, see, that's what I'm saying is like, I could think, oh, of course I want her attention. Who doesn't like to be admired and wanted and feel attractive, right? That's one set of beliefs. But again, now we test the beliefs with, well, do you really want married women in relationships to be doing that? Would you want your wife to be doing that, right? Because again, if those women are in relationships, what about your wife? Do you want her at the gym objectifying all these other men and checking them out, right? Flirting with their eyes, or even worse, or physically flirting, right? It's easy to say on one side that flirting is relatively harmless, but again, do you want your wife doing all of that? Do you want your daughter doing some of that stuff, right? So that's what I mean by self-mastery. It's this testing of your belief system. Is this sustainable? Right? Because just because it feels fun for you and it's convenient for you doesn't mean that it's not harming the world. Doesn't mean that it's an unsustainable practice that actually makes this place worse, right? It violates morals and values that actually make the world a worse place to live in, a less safe place for women to be in, right? So again, think about recovery as a lifestyle. Right? Hunt your beliefs constantly. Are these best beliefs to have? And again, don't keep self-mastery confined to sexual sobriety. To me, that's a mistake. And I think most men make that mistake. And I think that's why most men who relapse is they're so zoomed in on the sexual behaviors. It's like, no, let's zoom out and look at the belief system that created the environment that allowed these sexual behaviors to occur, because it's that environment that causes all sorts of problems. Right? It's that environment that why we cheat on our diet, and it's that environment that makes us lazy or procrastinate. There's a lot more than just sexual behaviors happening in a world full of that belief system. It's your job to understand, how did I start believing these things, and are these the best things for me?